Good morning, you beautiful English learners. My name is Ronan. This is the Little Seal English podcast. You are either listening to this or you're either watching this because this is on YouTube. Yes, this is one of the first times I've actually recorded a full podcast with the camera on. I'm definitely a little nervous. I'm definitely not on point for the entire thing. You're going to see that in this video or listen to it in the podcast. But this is something new I'm trying. I'm going to start uploading to YouTube more often. So if you are just listening to this, thanks a million. But if you want to listen and watch the video, go to my YouTube channel, Little Seal English. You can also find a link on my website, littlesealenglish.com. Anywho, this podcast is all about the word dump. And we're going to talk about the verb to dump. Like, where's the best place to dump a body? What is the worst way to dump a person, for example? Many meanings for the verb to dump. After that, we're going to look at a dump. And what is a dump? I'm not talking about the literal place where you put garbage. I'm talking about the figurative meaning of a dump. And in that one, I talk about my school and I talk about my friend's house because I'm a great person. We talk about a dump being a poop. Yes, we can't really talk about a dump if we do not talk about that one. And then at the end, we start talking about some idiomatic expressions with dump and some collocations with dump. We talk about a dump truck, figurative and literal. We talk about a toxic dump, a data dump. We talk about an emotional dump, and we talk about trauma dumping. Very important, all of those. And at the end, with the idioms, it is a dumpster fire, which is, I'm not going to tell you. We talk about dumpster diving, and we talk about a dump truck backing up. Folks, my name is Ronan. This is the Little Seal Podcast. I hope you enjoy. Buckle up. Good morning, my beautiful listeners. What's happening? Today, we are going to look at the verb dump, D-U-M-P. If time allows it, we'll also have a look at some idioms with dump and a few other aspects. But first, let's just focus on the verb to dump. And, we're going to kick off this podcast with about 5 different questions, all using the word dump. So your job is to just sit back, relax, listen to the questions, and start to think of different answers for those questions. Question number 1. In your hometown, where is a good place to dump a body? Yeah, you heard me. I need to know this. This is very important information. Local knowledge trumps everything. So where is a good place in your hometown to dump a body? Question number 2. What is the worst way to dump a person? There's many different ways that you can dump a person. So what is the worst way to dump a person? Number 3. Are you also guilty of dumping laundry on the floor and not picking it up for days? Let me know. Question number 4. If you work in business, have you ever had to dump a client and why? And then question number 5, have you ever dumped all over a person's work or something they're proud of and made them cry? So in all of those sentences, in those 5 different questions, the word dump is used as a verb. And now we're going to examine the verb dump in just a few different contexts. So first we're going to look at dump in terms of breaking up with a person. To dump a person. That was question number 2. What is the worst way to dump a person? Now, when 2 people decide to break up, it's usually more serious. Dump is something that I would usually associate with adolescents or teenagers or something along those lines. For a married couple, it would be divorce. For a couple who are living together in a long-term relationship, it would be to split up. However, if you're dating and it hasn't been that long, it would be dump, D-U-M-P. And there's many terrible ways to dump a person. Text message is probably one of the worst. I don't know if people still do that anymore. But when I was in high school and people started getting phones, they would break up with each other over text. They would dump someone over text. And then they would find a new boyfriend or new girlfriend over text. So texting was one of the worst ways to dump a person. It's very impersonal. Now, there's many other ways that you could dump a person. You could grow a pair of balls and do it face to face. Grow a pair of brass ovaries and do it face to face. You could take out an ad on social media so it just pops up on their screen and it's like, hey, Ronan, you've been dumped. Have a good one. Good luck. Plenty of more fish in the sea. If you had fuck you money, you could absolutely get one of those airplanes to fly overhead with the banner saying, Ronan, you're dumped. Good luck, for example. So many different ways to dump a person. The worst, in my opinion, or one of the worst, is via a text message. So, to dump a person is to end a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, usually a romantic partner. Now, the second meaning of the verb to dump is to drop a large amount of something somewhere, usually waste. I think I gave you the question number 3. Are you also guilty of dumping laundry on the floor and not picking it up for days? Folks, that's me. I am absolutely guilty of this. There are times when I will do the laundry. I will get the laundry from the dryer. I will fold it and I bring it into the bedroom and I just dump it on the floor. Or I just dump the laundry on the bed and it's all clean. And it might take me a day or two before I actually move it and put it into my drawers or put it into my closet. So to dump the laundry on the floor is when you come back with the laundry and you just plonk it down on the floor. Another example could be that maybe you're getting changed at night and your clothes are filthy and you just take them off and you dump them on the floor there. But why dump them on the floor? Why not dump them into the laundry basket? You know, the laundry basket is right there. The floor is right beside it. Why must I always choose the floor? Why must I dump my laundry on the floor? Dump my dirty clothes on the floor? I don't know. It's just what I do sometimes. So to dump is to drop a large amount of something somewhere. Did you just dump a large amount of dishes in the sink and walk away? That's kind of like a pet peeve of mine. You know, if you have a person who just gets a load of dishes, or if I go into my bedroom right now, I guarantee you I have about 3 or 4 mugs beside my bed. I'll get those, I'll walk to the sink, and I'll dump them in the sink and walk away. Not a good thing. It happens. So we're using it in that case to just dump a bunch of dishes in the sink, walk away. Another example. They dumped waste in the river and caused a huge ecological issue. They dumped waste in the river. To dump waste. That is a very common collocation. We wouldn't say dispose of waste in a river. It's dump waste in a river because you're dropping a large amount of it. In this case, usually a secret. And then the worst is, in the office on Friday, my boss dumped a load of paperwork on my desk. They dumped a load of paperwork on my desk. I need to get through it. That's horrible. So you can imagine that your boss is walking through the office. In their hands, they got a huge stack of paper. And then they just go over to your desk and dump it on your desk. That's yours. Have fun for the weekend. So that is to dump, as to drop a large amount of something, somewhere. Sometimes waste, sometimes laundry. Could be the dishes. Now, question number 4. If you work in business, have you ever had to dump a client? Yes. And to dump a client means that you break a connection with the client. It's kind of like you're dropping them as a client. Can you think of what would cause you to dump a client? Like, this client brings in a lot of money for your company, but at the same time, they're incredibly hard to work with. They're never on time. They keep changing their mind. They're blah, blah, blah. They're rude. They're egotistic. And in all of those cases, maybe it's time that you did dump the client. We dumped that client because they were not paying the bills. If you're not careful, the company will dump you. And that might be talking to a person who's working for another company or is hired by the company even as a contractor. We need to dump that contractor. They're absolutely not worth our money. They're absolutely not worth what we're paying, for example. The next meaning of to dump is to dispose of something. And that goes to question number 1. In your hometown, where's a good place to dump a body? So, I'm not asking for any particular reason, but if you've ever had to dispose of a body, where do you dump it? There's some good places and some bad places to dump a body. Some bad places could be a school, a police station, the front door of a bar, for example. Not good places to dump a body. Many, many people are going to be around. Good places to dump a body, remote areas, maybe into a lake or something like that. Many different places to dump a body. I dumped a body in an area that I thought no one would find it. How was I to know it was popular for dog walkers, for example? So whenever you're watching a movie and they say we need to dump a body, that means they need to hide a body, they need to dispose of a body, dispose of it. Because, if you dump a body, it might not take very long for the body to be disposed of by insects or everything around. This is a weird conversation. This is a weird podcast. Okay, moving on. Dump means to dispose of something as well. So perhaps there is a person and you're in your office, for example, and you open your fridge in the office and you're like, hey guys, whose food is this? I think it's been here for about 3 days. No idea. Dump it. Get rid of it. We don't need it, for example. So to dump is to dispose of something. You can dump waste and you can dump bodies. 2 very important English lessons right there. Another meaning of dump as a verb is to release information. WikiLeaks dumped 1,000 gigabytes of information online. They dumped 1,000 gigabytes of information online. You don't really dump a gigabyte of information. You don't really dump 2 gigabytes of information, but 1,000 gigabytes or a terabyte of information, you absolutely dump that. That is called a dump, which is a noun. But we often say WikiLeaks dumped all the information online. The spy dumped the classified documents online. That was actually a recent one in the US. There was not a spy, but some guy working high up in the government, and he dumped a load of secrets online on Discord for everyone to read. So to dump, in this case, is to release information, usually by secret. Usually it's not allowed if you need to do that. Think about whistleblowers. 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 And a whistleblower is a person who blows the whistle, who releases, who highlights corruption or something illegal happening somewhere. And so in this case here, the spy dumped classified documents. The whistleblower dumped classified documents online for the world to see. They wanted to highlight an issue. So they dumped all the information on Facebook, on Reddit, on Instagram, on Telegram, anywhere like that. So, overall, folks, to dump as a verb, it's so versatile. It has many, many, many different meanings. Meaning number 1, to break up with a person. To end a relationship with a person, kind of something that teenagers do. Send you a message, it's like, hey, sorry, it was fun, but it's over, bye. And then, your friend gets the message and they're like, oh my God, he just dumped me by text, for example. The second one was to drop a large amount of something somewhere, usually waste. And I gave you the examples of dropping laundry on the floor, dumping laundry on the floor, dumping a bunch of dishes in the sink and walking away, or a big company that is dumping waste in a river and thus causing an ecological issue. Maybe it's on a Friday and your boss will dump a bunch of paperwork on your desk. Now, hopefully, you will have a good work-life balance and you won't touch it till Monday, but you never know. Some bosses can be nightmares to work with. I can't believe he dumped that on me just at 4:45 on a Friday. So all weekend you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about all the work your boss dumped on your table, all the paperwork your boss dumped on the table in front of you, and you know it's waiting for you on Monday. But hey, enjoy the weekend. To dump is to also break a connection with someone, a very informal way. Think business. Business, business, business. You may need to dump a client because blah, blah, blah. Due to the scandal, the actor was dumped by his publicist. Due to the scandal, the actor was dumped by Adidas. Didn't that happen to Kanye West recently, or Ye, or whatever his name is? Again, he was tweeting a bunch of racist, xenophobic stuff, and I think it was Adidas dumped him. So Adidas dumped him because he's a racist bigot. For example, we're only learning here. The other one for dump was to unload a large amount of something. So the construction company dumped a load of sand on the site for leveling the ground. So just imagine like a huge dump truck comes up, tips all the sand onto the site. That is to dump something large somewhere. The snow removers dumped the snow outside of town. Like, you know, if you're not aware, I live in Canada, and in the winter we get a fuck ton of snow. We get a lot of motherfucking snow in this town. And you often see the snow trucks go past full to the brim with snow. They go outside of town and they dump it there. And that's where it will melt. So the snow removers dumped the snow outside of town. And of course, the second last example was to dispose of something like a body. So if you need to dump a body, or if you need to dispose of a body, where are you going to dump it? Local knowledge always wins that answer. You might need to dump food because it's been in the fridge for too long. That's another pet peeve of mine. You know, I really, really, really dislike that. A pet peeve is something that really pisses you off, by the way. And for me, disposing of food is horrible. I hate when I need to dump food. I hate when I make a salad and I leave it in the fridge for a day too long and I need to dump it. You know, my wife and I are finding now that the temperature is much higher. I don't know, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see my sweat. It's like a sweat box in here right now. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, vegetables go off a lot sooner now. So we've had to start storing everything in the fridge, and the fridge is getting overflowed. But if we don't, we're going to have to dump the food because it goes off a lot quicker in the summer compared to the winter. And my name was Ronan, and I absolutely hate dumping food. I am not a fan of that at all. Another example was to release information. Yes, WikiLeaks dumped 1,000 gigabytes of information online, or the spy dumped the classified documents online. And there was one that I completely forgot to talk about. My God, I'm not on point today. Not on point. That just means you're slacking. It means you're making silly mistakes or something. And right now, I'm definitely not on point. To be fair, I only got about 5.5 hours sleep last night. And I really think it's down to the heat. So in the daytime yesterday, it was like 35 degrees, which was not expected. And last night at around even 10 or 11 p.m., the temperature dropped, but only to 25 degrees. So like I was lying in bed and it was 25 degrees in the room. So that is not pleasant, and I was really unable to get a good sleep last night. So that is why I'm not on point today. On point. If you're on point, you're sharp. You're ready. You're not going to fuck it up. You're not going to make silly mistakes. But me, I'm definitely not on point today, because question number 5 was, have you ever dumped all over a person's work and made them cry? Well, folks, I'm a teacher and I absolutely do. I have done that a lot, and that's like one of the main reasons why I became a teacher, was to dump all over a student's work and watch them cry. God, I love that feeling. To dump all over a person's work is to criticize the work, is to like really, really, really insult the work. Think about Gordon Ramsay. He's one of the best. He's absolutely amazing at dumping on people and dumping on something that a person cooked. I remember once I was watching it, and one of the chefs on it, or contestants, made a shepherd's pie. Quite the traditional Irish dish, shepherd's pie. And Gordon tried a little bit of it and he spat it out and he said, I wouldn't serve that to a dog in Dublin City. I wouldn't serve that to a dog in Dublin City. He took a giant dump all over that person's work. He dumped all over that person's work. He probably made them regret going on to the show. You know, if you don't have a thick skin, you shouldn't be on that show by any means. But in that case there, he's basically saying, this food is shit. This food is terrible and not even a dog would eat it. Can you imagine how you would feel if you spent a long time working on something and then someone came along and said, dude, that's fucking shit. They're dumping all over your work. You didn't have to dump all over it. You could have been nice. Wow, Ronan, you didn't pull any punches. You dumped all over their work and you made them cry. I'm a teacher. I find if I dump all over a student's work, they work harder. Not true. He keeps dumping on me and I got no idea why. He keeps insulting me and I got no idea why. Hey, Ronan, you didn't have to take a giant dump all over her work. She was quite happy with it and you ruined her moment. Well done. Listen to that one. Take a giant dump. That's not really to dump as a verb. That is to take a dump, and we're going to talk about that in one moment. But overall, folks, the way we can use dump as a verb. Number 1, break up with a person. Number 2, drop a large amount of something somewhere, usually waste. Number 3, to break a connection with someone. Number 4, to unload a large amount of something. Number 5, to dispose of something. Number 6, to release information. Number 7, to insult something, usually work. Okay, that's the verb to dump. But now let's look at the noun A-dump. A-D-U-M-P. So where do we begin with this one? Let me see. Well, it is figurative. There are many figurative and literal meanings to this one here. A dump is a bad place. A place in poor conditions, a place of low standards. Have you seen John's new apartment? Yeah, man, it's an absolute dump. I never want to go there again. Have you seen John's new apartment? Yeah, man, the outside is nice, but the inside is a dump. Has he ever heard of a dishwasher? Has he ever heard of taking out the garbage, for example? So a dump is a terrible part of town. A dump is a disgusting place, a very, very bad place. You know, my school was a dump when I was there. But it was my dump. It was our dump. I'm not even joking with you. The school I went to as a teenager was an absolute dump. We had broken windows. We had leaks in the classroom. It was too cold in winter and way too hot in the spring. So the school was originally founded in 1857. I did look this up in advance. And in 1892, a building was erected. Now, I'm sure in 1892, this building was amazing. This was probably the best place to study. It was probably one of the best schools in the country. But when I went there, 120 years later, not a lot had changed, and therefore it was a bit of a dump. So I was in that school from about 03 to 09, I think it was. Like I said, 120 years or so after the first building was actually erected. And yeah, it was an absolute dump. So the school, it was originally built as a boarding school. You know, a school where students would travel to, stay overnight, maybe stay in for a week, and then at the weekend they would travel home back to their families. That's a boarding school. Quite popular in many parts of the world. Are boarding schools popular where you live? Are boarding schools something that you wanted to do when you were younger? You know, in Ireland, boarding schools are quite expensive, so usually people don't go to boarding schools, just the rich kids. Anyways, this school was a boarding school, and so it was converted into a day school. And that means all the dormitories, that means all the rooms where the teachers used to sleep, that means the kitchens, everything like that was converted into regular classrooms for day students. Like I said, we had broken windows. We had paint peeling off the wall. We had drips in the classrooms. We had freaking blue mold on the wall. I am not even joking. Like, there was holes in the floor, the walls were coming apart, and the walls were moldy. There was mold on the walls in the classroom. An absolute health hazard, but it was our health hazard. You know, that was our dump, and we loved it. We loved it because we could do whatever the fuck we wanted in that school. There wasn't a day that went by that a window wasn't broken, that a door wasn't smashed, that someone just got a pen and drew all over the wall or something. Lockers were kicked in on a daily basis. It was an absolute dump. But like I said, it was our dump. It was a beautiful dump, and we loved it. Fun fact, when I was doing my teaching practice or my teaching placement in 2011 or maybe 2012, I had to return to that school. Summer Hill is the name, by the way, if you are interested in looking it up. Summer Hill. And if you type in Summer Hill Old Building, that's the one that I went to school in. But what I noted was that, so I went back in 2012, I think it was. And since I had left the school, it had been rebuilt. You know, they got a grant of a couple of million euros and they put up a brand new school. And it was gorgeous. It's a sexy new school. It is an absolute state of the art. They've got interactive whiteboards. It's big open spaces. It's just very, very, very modern and very, very nice. And what I noticed the most was the respect that the students had for the school. It was something that just wasn't there when I was in the school. And, you know, I guess this is a testament to that if you give someone something nice, they will try to protect it, because the students there had no interest in defacing the school. Like, I'm not joking. When I was there, every day someone would graffiti the walls. Someone would break a window. Someone would just start peeling the paint off a wall because fuck it, why not? The place is a dump. But now that the school was state of the art, really, really nice and super, super modern, nobody wanted to deface it. Nobody wanted to turn it into a dump. So the current school is not a dump. The school I went to was an absolute dump, but I loved it. It had character. You know, I could absolutely do a podcast about my school. I could probably have a lot of episodes just about the shit that went on in my school. Folks, there were 800 boys in my school. No chicks, no girls. A few female teachers, but apart from that, it was a motherfucking zoo, that school. It was wild. There's so many stories, I don't even know where to start. Like, I'm only scratching the surface. This is just the tip of the iceberg with students peeling stuff off the walls. But you can imagine, in a school with 800 boys, it's fucking wild. It's absolutely insane. God, I love that dump. All right, we're talking about dump. That's a tangent and a half that I just went on. A dump, as I said, is a bad place, a place in poor conditions or poor standards. I gave you the example of John's new apartment, and it's a dump. Where's John's new apartment? Oh, it's in the north end of town. Really? That place is a dump. John's new apartment is absolutely beautiful on the outside, but inside it's a dump. Why? Because John is a slob. You know, he dumps his laundry on the floor. He dumps his dirty dishes everywhere, so they're piling up like a mountain. He dumps the garbage in the living room, for example. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of examples on the fly. On the fly. There's a sexy idiom. On the fly. Without thinking, off the cuff, without planning, on the fly. Just a random idiom for you. Now, another meaning of dump that we're going to absolutely have to talk about is, a dump is poop, poo, feces, shit, poop, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, it's a noun. I need to take a dump. Hey, where's Jorge? Oh, he's out taking a dump. He'll be back in a while. Oh, for fuck's sake, someone left a dump in the toilet. Flush the fucking thing. And, you know, we often say take a dump, not make a dump. We don't actually make a dump, we just take a dump. That is why the examples above for insulting or undermining a person's work, remember earlier? I said take a dump all over her work or just dump all over her work. It basically means you're shitting all over her work. So someone comes up to you with something amazing and someone shits all over it. Not literally, figuratively. They tell you it's terrible. They are taking a dump all over your work. And it's really sad when someone does that. You know, it can be really disheartening. You know, maybe you really wanted someone to acknowledge what you made and you're personally proud of what you made. And then shit like that happens. Oh well. So, a dump is poop. I need to take a dump. He's taking a dump. Someone left a dump in the toilet. Have you seen the movie... Oh my god, what's the name of it? Oh my god, Austin Powers. I can't believe that slipped my mind. Have you seen the movie Austin Powers? I'm really showing my age here by talking about that. But there's a character in it called Fat Bastard and he leaves a dump in the toilet. Just look it up. I probably shouldn't have said that or said anything about it. Anyways, so overall, a dump is poop. Take a dump. Leave a dump in the toilet. Don't leave your dump in the toilet. Just fucking flush it for God's sake. Alright, moving on from poop. Alright, let's look at a couple of different collocations or different ways to use the word dump. And the first one is a dump truck. And there's a literal and a figurative way we can use this. She's driving a dump truck. Well done, she has a job. I hope she's paid a fair salary. Damn, she's driving a dump truck. What's the difference between those two sentences? One is literal and one is figurative. She's driving a dump truck. I hope she's paid a decent salary. She's literally driving. That's her job. It's her profession. She's a dump truck driver. Or I could say, damn, she's driving a dump truck. And that just means she has a fine bottom. She has a very, very nice rear end. You could say, look at the dump truck on that guy. He clearly does his squats. You know, someone has a nice bum, and you might call it a dump truck. They might have a large bum, and you can call it a dump truck. Damn, she has a dump truck. I could look at that all day. Give that person a slap. If a person has a dump truck, and it's not the literal version, you're talking about their ass. You're talking about their behind. You're talking about their large rear end. She is driving a dump truck. He is absolutely driving that dump truck. He clearly does a lot of squats. So if a person has a rather nice and attractive bottom or bum or ass or rear end, whatever you want to call it, you can now also call it a dump truck. I found that one out recently enough. Dump truck is used to refer to a person's bum, a large bum at that. Now, where do you go when you have a dump truck full of garbage? You go to the dump. The dump is usually an area outside of town. The dump is usually an area and you can smell it before you get there. A dump, also known as a landfill. We can talk about a toxic dump, and a toxic dump is where you go to put hazardous or toxic materials. Environmental activists protested against the establishment of another toxic dump near the residential area. I can't believe they put a toxic dump beside the playground. You can have a data dump. And that is similar to what I spoke about with WikiLeaks or with a whistleblower. You know, a large amount of information or data is transferred or stored or just dumped online. For example, I need to analyze the data dump from the experiment before drawing any conclusions. There was a data dump of 1,000 terabytes last week. It will take a while to get through. So a data dump is when someone or a group of people upload and dump a load of information online. Data dump. Now, another one that's a little more serious is a trauma dump. T-R-A-U-M-A-D-U-M-P. Trauma dumping is not good, and it is an act of unloading trauma onto others, unloading trauma onto others. And that can be done by constantly talking about a traumatic experience or by deliberately reliving it through reenactment. Trauma dumping can have negative consequences for the individual doing the trauma and for anyone on the receiving end of the trauma. Trauma dumping is when we unload trauma onto someone else without regard for their emotional state or well-being. And we might do this because we're overwhelmed by our own experience and we need relief. Or we may think that the person listening to us and listening to our trauma can fix us. Venting, on the other hand, is a way of releasing the pent-up emotions associated with trauma in a safe and controlled manner. When we vent to another person, we're mindful of their boundaries. We only share as much as they can handle. But when we're trauma dumping, we're not mindful of their boundaries and we share as much as we need to or want to, whether we want to or not, basically. Venting allows us to process emotions. Trauma dumping does not. And what are we talking about with trauma? Trauma is anything that severely affects you mentally and also physically. You know, if you're going through a lot or if there's a lot of stuff that you haven't dealt with in your life, it could be called trauma. Maybe something incredibly bad happened to you as a child and then you trauma dump when you're an adult onto someone. But you don't warn them. You know, maybe they're not a professional. And if this speaks to you, if you're like a person who's thinking, holy shit, that's me, I'm guilty of trauma dumping on my friend, maybe it's time to reach out and see a therapist, for example. So to trauma dump is unloading trauma onto others. Trauma. No real jokes to be made about that one, folks. It's a very serious thing. Venting is positive. Venting is when you release all your emotions in a way, but you release your trauma in a safe and controlled way. That is venting. You're in a calm way and you're talking about it. Trauma is when it just consumes you and you just dump it out. You vomit it all out onto the table and you're not really sure why. Venting is healthy. Trauma dumping is not. Okay. Let's have a quick look at some idioms with the word dump. And the first one we're going to look at is a dumpster fire. My God, my life feels like a dumpster fire at times. A dumpster fire is an absolute complete disaster. Something very difficult that nobody wants to deal with. This project is a complete dumpster fire. This project is a colossal mess. This project is a shit show. So a dumpster fire is a shit show. A dumpster fire is a complete mess. A dumpster fire is something often created by incompetence. My working conditions are a dumpster fire thanks to my co-workers. That's not true. That's just me giving some examples. In entertainment or sports, you could call a laughably poor performance a dumpster fire. Have you ever been to an event that was an absolute dumpster fire? Have you ever been somewhere that there was nothing organized? I think it was the Fry Festival or the Fire Festival. There was a documentary on Netflix on it like a couple of years ago. And, you know, a load of people went to an island for a festival, but there was nothing there. There were no toilets, there was no food, there was no campsites. The place was a complete mess. There was no singers or something. That's a dumpster fire. So a dumpster fire is something that is completely unorganized, a colossal mess, and something that nobody wants to deal with. That client is an absolute dumpster fire. Avoid him at all costs. So dumpster fire, complete disaster. Avoid, avoid, avoid. The next one is to dumpster dive or dumpster diving. This term refers to the practice of searching through trash or dumpsters for discarded items. You know, we have that idiom in English. One man's trash is another man's treasure, and it is 100% true. You never know what you're going to find if you go dumpster diving. I've never been dumpster diving myself, but I do know some people who regularly go dumpster diving. Some people see it as cheap or strange, but for other people it can just be exciting. And for other people it is out of necessity. A lot of people might not want to have to dumpster dive, but due to poverty or certain circumstances, they must dumpster dive. Some people do it for food or to make a quick buck. Can you imagine you were dumpster diving and you find a Rolex watch, you find an old violin or an old painting that turns out to be a Picasso painting? That is when dumpster diving is amazing. Usually you're probably going to find food waste, you're probably going to find unsanitary products. Unfortunately, some people dump cats or dogs or kittens or pups into the large... what do I call it? The large bins, Oh my god, I'm certainly not on point today. Some people often dump animals into dumpsters. Dumpster diving. Jesus Christ, Ronan. Like I said, folks, I am not on point today, but it is what it is. So, here in Canada, it is quite popular that people go dumpster diving. They usually have a flashlight on their head, a headlamp or a head torch, depending on where you are. That's how you call it. And then, they might wear certain protective clothing because the last thing you want to do is dumpster dive and cut yourself. You don't want to be open to infection. You don't want to get sick or anything. So, dumpster diving. Hey, folks, let's go dumpster diving. I'm dumpster diving this weekend if you want to join. Hey, anyone up for some dumpster diving today? So, to dumpster dive or dumpster diving. Good idiomatic expression. The next idiom I have it is very, very relatable for me. Like a dump truck backing up. So, we spoke earlier about a dump truck, how it can be a sexy ass, for example. A dump truck can literally be the huge truck that picks up the dumpster and tosses all the garbage into it. That's a dump truck. Now, whenever they reverse, they're not very subtle. And they make a fuck ton of noise. I don't know about where you live, but I'm woken up at least 2 mornings a week by the dump truck. And I'm always woken up to it when it's backing up. Because when it backs up, it goes beep, 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 beep. It has to because it's pretty big and the driver probably can't see everything behind them. So they got to warn people. Now, when a dump truck is backing up, there runs a risk that it's going to hit something. It's going to hit a sign. It's going to run over a person. And then you got to dump a dead body afterwards. So there's many reasons on why this expression exists. And if you say, oh wow, he was as smooth as a dump truck backing up, that is used to describe someone who is not smooth, someone who is not subtle, someone who is just being very blunt or being very, very harsh about something. So my name is Ronan, and I'm as smooth as a dump truck backing up. I'm not very good at my spatial awareness. I happen to hit into a lot of things. I knock shit over. I say things that are inappropriate at times. Maybe I'm a little bit too harsh or not subtle enough. I am like a dump truck backing up. It's very noticeable when I do things. So like a dump truck backing up, used to describe someone who speaks or acts without tact or subtlety, often being blunt are very, very harsh, folks. Another idiom that was sent in to me from my wonderful Telegram group was to be down in the dumps. And if you're down in the dumps, you're incredibly sad. So let's just imagine you got dumped by text message. After that, you're down in the dumps. You are incredibly sad, incredibly depressed. If you're down in the dumps, go outside, get fucked up and have a party. I don't know. What do you do if you're down in the dumps? Is there anything that can be done, or do you just gotta ride it out? Anyways, folks, my name is Ronan. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. Dogs and cats, humans of the world, thank you all for listening. My name is Ronan. This is Little Seal English. I'm hoping my next video I'll be more on point. The camera definitely made me a little bit nervous, but you know, onwards and upwards, as they say. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. Otherwise, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.